Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Make sure to hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons. Well, understand this, and you'll know what's coming next. There's a monumental change taking place in the world right now. And if you want to understand where the world is going, what's going to happen next, you must understand this. So what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about a change, very big change in the way war is waged and the methods by which war is waged. Conventional weapons, outside of nuclear weapons, weapons of mass destruction, conventional weapons no longer have the deterrent effect they used to have. And in fact, they're proving to be really quite antiquated on the battlefield. So let's take a look at this article right here from The Hill. It says the world's first drone war is happening in Ukraine. And we've been warning about this for, well, 2 decades here, over 2 decades. And this is where we're going, and we're going to talk about how this is directly connected to end times Bible prophecy and the fulfillment of end times Bible prophecy, because this is a monumental change and you need to understand it. So let's read down here. It says, a lot of blame shifting is happening about the failed Ukrainian military offensive, but strangely, there's almost no discussion of its real causes, which are the steep learning curve of the Russian army. You can tell this is written from the U.S. side, not that there's anything wrong with that. I support the United States. But it says, and the military technology revolution happening right now on both sides. The Russo-Ukrainian war began as a classic artillery war. Now it is rapidly evolving into a drone war. The drones are ubiquitous, not a part of the battlefield. The drones are the battlefield now, guys. That's where we've gone in this, and it's only going to get far more sophisticated in terms of what's taking place. It says they destroy everything. Small FPV, first-person view drones, or SEADs in battle slang, are already hunting individual soldiers. The Russian offensive in Avdiivka is a bloodbath, and 70% of Russian armor is taken out by drones, the rest by mines. So think about that. Think about how that's changed the nature of warfare. And Ukraine has fewer drones than Russia. There are already drone swarms guided to the battlefield as a unit and then aimed separately. So guys, been writing about this for over 20 years. The book you see behind me, Racing Toward Armageddon, this is one of the key components of that book, and talking about the trends technologically, the technological trends that are bringing us to the tribulation period, because the rise of drones and swarm technology, married with artificial intelligence, quantum computing, molecular manufacturing. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute as those reach critical mass and come to maturity as technologies, will completely alter the geopolitical power structure, meaning whoever is in control of those technologies at their peak will dominate the earth, will establish a global empire, because mutual assured destruction, which is what's kept the global order in place since the end of World War II, is about to become obsolete in the same way that we're seeing tanks and armored personnel carriers and some of these other World War II era battlefield foot soldier weapons become obsolete on the battlefield, not just in Ukraine, but we've seen drones play an outsized role in the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. We've seen them play a role in Israel's response and attacks on Gaza, and we've seen the Houthi rebels and how they've completely shut down the Red Sea shipping corridor using drones. And guys, we're in the rudimentary, crude, early stages of drone warfare. We haven't seen anything yet, and already, as we just read in that article, they're ubiquitous. They're on the battlefield. They're dominating the battlefield. So lest there be any doubt that where we're going is essentially a 95% drone-dominated military warfare structure, let's take a look at this article from Politico. All I need to do is read the headline. We've talked about this before, but it says a $2 million missile versus a $2,000 drone. Pentagon worried over cost of Houthi attacks. Well, worried over the cost, but the Pentagon should be worried that they've completely lost the technological advantage that the United States has had really since the end of World War II until very recently. And this underscores that there has to be a change. You can no longer pay defense contractors to spend 10 years, 20 years developing a program for some sophisticated, large piece of equipment that, is billions of dollars for each one, and then is deployed into the battlefield and destroyed in 10 seconds by a $2,000 drone. And let's do the math on this. $2 million missile taking down a $2,000 drone. I can do the math on that and come out with, okay, if I had 500,000 drones, right? Let's say I put together 500,000 drones. Let's say I'm the Houthis, right? I've got 500,000 drones, and I send those 500,000 drones over the course of a week or two. Might be hard to do, but in due time it won't be, because we're seeing the technology is decreasing the prices of manufacturing these drones as time goes by. So we're going to see that happen. We're going to see more rapid deployment of drones. But 500,000 drones times 2,000 is $1 billion. There are a lot of U.S. corporations that have $1 billion. Certainly nation states have $1 billion. So if a nation state like Iran decided, let's put together 500,000 drones and let's just send them against every U.S. naval ship in the Red Sea, the Gulf of Oman, the Persian Gulf, anywhere near us, we're just going to send them. Well, in effect, they can't lose, because if every single one of those 500,000 drones was taken out by a $2 million missile, well, the United States just spent $1 trillion, assuming they even had 500,000 missiles to counter with. You see what I'm saying? If they didn't take them out and some of those drones managed to sink a U.S. warship, the implications of that go far beyond the sunken ship and the crew. I don't want to see that. But what I'm saying is that would send a message to the world that outside of nuclear weapons for the moment, there is no deterrent effect of deploying the U.S. military's conventional forces. And frankly, I think we're already at that point. That's what we're seeing happening in the Red Sea right now. We've seen all of the Houthi attacks. We've seen the Operation Prosperity Guardian. We've seen the attacks that took place a few days ago. I don't think we're going to see these attacks by the UK and the United States and Operation Prosperity Guardian on the Yemeni positions where they were launching these attacks from. But I don't think that's going to stop these attacks. Time will tell. If it doesn't, then that tells us U.S. military conventional forces no longer have that technological advantage they had in the past, and they will no longer deter America's enemies. What does that mean for the world? What does that mean for America's superpower status? It has profound implications, no doubt about it. So this is where things are headed, and that's why we see articles like this one from Zero Hedge. It says Pentagon seeks EMP weapon to eliminate drone swarms. So this is their primary concern right now. It says, faced with the reality that drones are reshaping the modern battlefields in Ukraine and Gaza, the Pentagon has been tasked with finding a budget-friendly, again, you can't have the conventional warfare programs that we've had in place cannot compete in this world. They have to be fundamentally altered and changed. A budget-friendly solution to eliminate these flying IEDs. While missiles are too expensive and laser beams are a distant dream, the next best cost-effective weapon U.S. military officials are eyeing up could be electromagnetic pulse weapons to counter drone swarms. And this is definitely a logical place to where you would go. But again, EMPs are nothing new. 2 years of drone warfare on the battlefield in Russia, Ukraine, we haven't seen a counter put in place for these drones yet. We've seen what they call cope cages, which are these basically metal shields put above tanks to keep the direct hit from a drone coming in. And we've seen them pushing out smoke out of the back of some of those tanks so that it'll confuse the drone. The drone doesn't know where it is. But think of an electromagnetic pulse weapon, because this is what I've heard people say for years. Drones are no problem because you'll simply use an EMP. But you have to have a range on that EMP, because an EMP essentially is a weapon of mass destruction. It's going to hit anything that's in its path and just overload its circuitry. So yes, you shoot an EMP at a swarm of drones, those drones are going to be ineffective. They're going to fall to the ground. The problem is, what is your range on that? It can't be 50 miles or you're going to take out some of your own infrastructure. You're going to take out some of your own military hardware in the process. So you can't just indiscriminately shoot electromagnetic pulses in every direction simultaneously, right? Because remember, we're not talking about shooting straight forward. Drones, a swarm of drones can come from every direction. So you're just going to indiscriminately shoot EMPs all over the place? No, you're not. Well, then you might say, well, then we'll put a range on that EMP of 50 yards, right? And we'll make sure nothing we want to destroy is within that 50 yards. And when the drones get close, shoot the EMP and they're gone. The problem is where we're going next. That would probably work right now on the battlefield in Ukraine, because we're talking about these first-person view drones that are controlled by someone sitting somewhere far away, maybe even on the other side of the world, controlling it like a video game. But there's far more sophisticated drones already in existence. The question is, when do they get deployed en masse on the battlefield? And those drones have artificial intelligence piloting the drones. And so when you have a swarm attacking, and it's piloted by AI, and it's learning on the battlefield in real time what works and what doesn't, once it knows your range is 50 yards, those drones will stop short of 50 yards and then fire munitions that can't be impacted by an EMP and destroy the target. So you're going to need to develop defenses as rapidly and as exponentially as AI is developing new offensive techniques on the battlefield. And so can you see where this creates an exponential arms race, which we've talked about before? And again, nuclear weapons and traditional weapons of mass destruction are conventional weapons subject to the same destructive power when new technologies come along, when you have AI reach critical mass, and you have quantum computing reach critical mass where codes can be broken, where you have molecular manufacturing, which we'll talk about in a moment, which would allow the deployment of trillions of drones simultaneously, and they could know where your weapons of mass destruction are, and a preemptive attack could take them all out. MAD's gone. Well, you can't have two powers in a scenario where they're both using AI to exponentially build up, have this arms race on an exponential scale. Eventually, you would have a catastrophic war that would destroy the whole Earth. So whoever has that initial advantage, because they're growing exponentially, no one else will ever be able to catch up. So they will use that advantage to conquer the world. And again, we'll talk about that in a moment, because that has, again, profound implications for Bible prophecy. So again, let's take a look, lest we have any doubt, at what's happening on the battlefield. So here is another article from Newsweek. It's titled, "Russia has snatched away Ukraine's drone advantage." And we scroll down and we read a little bit about what's happening. It says, since it was invaded by Russia in February 2022, Ukraine has spent the many long months of full-scale war amassing its, quote, drone army, constantly developing new airborne vehicles and fundraising for more. So what does this mean? Well, this means that, they're constantly developing new airborne vehicles. So there's a constant rapid rate of change. Again, conventional weapons development programs can't do that. You can't spend 10 years developing a piece of military hardware when drones are being constantly developed, becoming more powerful, more sophisticated, lower cost to produce. 10 years out, you're going to be beyond obsolete. Even if you collapse that to a year of development, you're obsolete. This is happening in real time. And that's why, back in the summer, we pointed out this right here. The U.S. Department of Defense says Hicks discusses Replicator Initiative. So what is this Replicator Initiative that the Pentagon is in? They put forward at that time that within 12 to 18 months, they want the ability to deploy thousands of air, land, and sea-based drones simultaneously. They use China as an example of where they would like to do that. But guys, this is where war is going. And there's something that this Replicator Initiative tells us. Well, first we pointed out that the word replicator is specifically from a book back in 1986 titled Engines of Creation, that talked about these actual weapons and the deployment of these weapons, and really the end of conventional warfare, the end of mutual assured destruction, and that a small country the size of Singapore, once it achieves these breakthrough advantages, could build an overwhelming military force in a matter of months, if not weeks, and just conquer the world. So the move is toward being able to develop cheaper hardware, ever cheaper hardware, because if you're using drones, if these are taking one-way flights, if you want to have them expendable on the battlefield, then you can't spend $1 billion a piece on these things, or even $2 million a piece on them like with missiles. You need to drive the cost down lower. So there's a move to drive the cost lower and then invest in the software, invest in the AI systems that are going to be driving these drone swarms in the future. That leads me to believe, and I've been saying this for 2 decades now, and here we're seeing it happen, that there is a race underway right now between the largest nations in the world, the most powerful nations on Earth. You could call it a modern-day Manhattan Project that's underway, just as we saw the Manhattan Project developed nuclear weapons during World War II for the United States. Well, there were programs in Germany and Japan and Russia as well. So the Soviet Union, a lot of these different nations, they all had their programs, but the United States was the winner. They achieved that breakthrough first, and it ended the war. If they had wanted, they could have used that advantage to probably take out the Soviet Union and anyone else that wanted to acquire nuclear weapons. They did not do that. But we've made the argument that once this breakthrough happens, specifically we're talking about molecular manufacturing. And again, this is a term that most people haven't heard, but again, if there was an internet back in the 1930s, there would have been people on there, just like I am now, saying, there's this theory that you can split an atom and unleash an enormous amount of energy and create a single bomb that'll destroy an entire city. Most people were completely unaware of that, even though there were a whole bunch of people who were aware of that. Again, the Manhattan Project was not alone. Japan knew about this, Germany knew about this, Soviet Union knew about this, UK and France knew about this, others knew about this. But the general public did not know. The same thing is taking place right now because molecular manufacturing, once it is created, gives you the ability to manufacture things from the bottom up, one molecule at a time. And that will enable you to rapidly, at very low cost, minimal cost, create pretty much anything that you want to create, including trillions of drones, sophisticated drones, much stronger and faster and lighter and better in every way than the drones we see today, linked with AI systems and learning on the battlefield, and they will be able to deploy those drones in real time. They could be manufactured on the battlefield. So that's where they're driving toward. There's a race for this. And guys, the world will find out that that's been achieved. We see this drone warfare taking place, the switchover taking place now. But when we find out that molecular manufacturing has been achieved, that breakthrough achieved by a nation, the world will find out about it because it will be used by that leading nation or nations to conquer the entire globe. Again, we've talked about this numerous times in the past. There might be some people who are watching this video for the first time that aren't aware of that. But guys, that should make your ears perk up, because what do we read about in the book of Revelation? We read about who can make war against the beast. We read that the Antichrist has dominion over all the people, nations, language, and tribes of the world. The entire globe is conquered, and no one can fight against the Antichrist. The book of Daniel tells us that the Antichrist is only overthrown by the power of Jesus Christ. It's not by human means that he is defeated, but by the return, the second coming of Jesus Christ at the end of the tribulation. So this type of technology is coming. Again, I don't know if it's coming tomorrow, a year from now, 5 years from now. I don't know when it's coming, but it is coming, because we've been talking about this for years again. But we're seeing this play out in real time in the news headlines. And it tells us the times in which we live. Guys, the times in which we live. Jesus and the prophets said to look for specific signs that would point to the 7-year tribulation period, the second coming of Jesus Christ at the end of that tribulation period. We see those signs, and Jesus said, when you begin to see these things, know that I am near. I'm right at the door. Your salvation draws near. Guys, we're in those times. Jesus is coming back. Take advantage of every moment that you have to share the hope you have in Jesus Christ with someone you know, because I don't know how much longer we have. Again, I don't know. But we're seeing all of this happen, just as was pointed out. There's that book right over my shoulder, outlined the whole thing years ago. There's articles that I have on the internet talking about this 20 years ago, saying, we see these trends technologically, and Bible prophecy, all these end times prophecies, they could be fulfilled now, meaning 20 years ago. But if they're not, in the next 20 or 30 years, when these technologies are developed, they will lead to the fulfillment of these prophecies. Well, fast forward, we're there now. I'm getting to a point where it's no longer a theory to say this is directly related to Bible prophecy. It's saying we're on the cusp of seeing these technologies developed. When they're developed, they have to be used to conquer the world. There's nothing in the Bible that says there will be a pre-conquering of the world prior to the Antichrist and this final global empire. Based on that occurring in tandem with all these other signs we see, I have to believe we're getting very close to this time period, and these technologies will play an integral role in the fulfillment of end times Bible prophecy. And right now, on every battlefield in the world, we're seeing drones, again, become ubiquitous and dominate the battlefield. Guys, the world has changed. If you still think the United States is the undisputed global superpower and no one can stop them, you need to wake up. There were a lot of people in Israel, a lot of people around the world who thought, there's no one better than Israeli intelligence. There's nobody better than the IDF who would attack Israel. And they learned that the technological advantage they thought they had been circumvented. And we're going to see the same thing happen in all battlefields. Guys, we're headed to a time of great change. You need to be aware of it. You need to be alert to it. But again, if your hope is in Jesus Christ, none of this is going to scare you, frighten you, fill you with fear. It's going to fill you with hope and anticipation because Jesus is coming. And hopefully it will fill you with an urgency to go out and share the good news of Jesus Christ, that he died on the cross, shed his blood for our sins so that we could be reconciled with God and have eternal life. And guys, he rose again. He lives today. He's preparing a place for us, and he will come back soon so that we can be with him. So that's our hope. That's our encouragement. Focus on him and focus on the work we need to be doing for him. So what do you think? Leave your comments below. Make sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. And God willing, I'll see you next time. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.